Gather around, Union Smack has returned, quarantined per usual, but still making the best of it right here on the channel. Hibiki TMD, what's going on? It's retro time once again, but I can't do that alone. As always, joined by my co-host, the Maniac, Matt Tennant. What's going on, man? How you been? Where can everyone catch you? And our sweet merch.
Yeah, same as usual, Travis. Inside, no work, no money, no hope. But, you know, holding up. And you can catch me on Twitter, as usual, at The Perfect Tenant. You can log on to our online store, unionsmack.bigcattail.com. Get all the official merchandise, the official shirts. More to come in summer. We need some new merch, I think, Travis. And you can log on to completelynovel.com and purchase my book, The Undertaker: A Trip Down Death Valley. A good and comforting read in these quarantine times.
Amen. And all apologies. Of course, I didn't decide to start doing this until we, decided to hit the red button and record. It's starting to rain outside. I don't know if that's because the clouds are opening up because of this unholy show we're about to review or what. But apologies if you can hear a little pitter-patter on my windows in the background. And as always on Twitter at the Hibiki TMD. Catch me there. That red button right down below, hit it, subscribe right here, YouTube, for all that gravy, all that goodness, all that sweet, sweet stuff, retro games, pro wrestling, heavy metal podcasts, everything in between. Just did a Terry Plays last night. Brand new promo class set with my man Broski. Had a special guest. What a week for Mania it was last week, Matt. We knocked out 3 retro reviews. We're right back here again, about to knock out another one. We went from the greatness and the badass and the landscape changed, and it was Austin Mania from WrestleMania 14 to car troubles with Bobby Heenan.
Yes. This was your little April Fool's, wasn't it? You messaged me on Twitter and went,
Yes.
Pretty sure like people don't get other people things for April Fool's, but this is my gift to you. You son of a bitch.
Happy belated. We're recording this on the 14th of April, so 2 weeks late exactly on the dot, but still, happy belated April Fool's to everyone. Yes, I tricked Matt. Honestly, and you even agreed off air right for record this, it started with a good tag match. It did.
Oh, it started with a good tag match, and I like the Bobby Heenan and Mean Gene Oakland skit thing. And for anybody who's not ever watched a Coliseum video, for the millennials who just think wrestling started in 2000, but these Coliseum videos regularly had like people like Bobby Heenan and Mean Gene or whoever the presenters were, sometimes doing little skits, but usually in different scenarios. And for a 7-year-old child watching this, as I was when the VHS tape came out, it hooked you in.
Yeah. These started releasing in the very early to mid 80s, and it evolved from just Mean Gene in the television studio telling you what's coming up, or funniest moments, or this one's on Andre the Giant, till the whole thing was goddamn skits. And I remember one Coliseum video where it's Lord Alfred Hayes got electrocuted by the bushwhackers doing construction work. You remember that one?
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
And I think there was a world tour one where it was Bobby Heenan and Mean Gene sorting through mail from all around the world.
Yeah. Now, 1993. This was the last run of Coliseum videos. They took a 2-year break from this, and then 95. They just started releasing Coliseum videotapes, but just based on this one's on Diesel, this one's on Razor, this one's on Bret. They weren't like this anymore. These compilation ones, and that sucked. It really did, because these, for as bad as a lot of these matches were, they've obviously aged. They are what they are, but they're still a fun watch. And I think coming away from this, whether you hated it or loved it, there's at least one part on these Coliseum videos that still feel fun. That kid in you.
Yeah, you're right. They do. They became mundane and monotonous when they started doing the biographical ones, if you like, where it was just his 4 matches on Undertaker or Razor, etc. But yeah, I like the skits. I don't know when they stopped in America, but over here, I think they started to peter out in 93. We didn't get as many as we used to, but I'm sure they went right into the beginning of 95, because there was one I remember called Brawl in the Family, and on the front it was Mabel and Jeff Jarrett and
oh God. The last two guys I just thought about when you said Brawl, and the I thought you were going to be like, it was the Harts, and, Mabel and Jeff Jarrett.
It's just like a conglomeration of wrestlers like on the front. So that's the last one I remember coming out over here. But yeah, I know there's people out there who've collected a lot and still have like a massive collection. So it'd be nice to see if we can get one of them on the show one day, Travis, and just go through the history of Coliseum videos.
I know a guy right up that alley. His name's Drew Ortman, right on this channel, who owns quite a bit. We got to do that one day. We got to have our first ever guest. It's got to be Drew, of all people, I feel like. Got to pull those little strings. You know what's crazy to me about these Coliseum videos? This was back in the day, the VHS era, obviously. This is also in the era before your WWE networks, and wrestling wasn't on every day of the fucking week, and there weren't a million promotions, and it wasn't oversaturated. You had this, you had NWA, you had your little offshoots, maybe AWA and ESPN, then you had tape trading. That's why these Coliseum videos went for, Jesus Christ, $70 to $80 sometimes. These tapes were so expensive. All sports section VHS were so much more expensive back then. Same with like anime too. Always so much more expensive. But I couldn't imagine spending like $80 on this tape, especially in 1993 money.
Imagine how pissed off you'd have been.
My God.
It's like $80 and you get this.
Well, you want to come clean right now and tell everybody what told me off air? What you owned?
No.
No? What's that translate to pounds? 80 American dollars, real quick, before we jump into this.
Today's money, probably like £65.
Because we're an international show. The people need to know the differences in currency, man.
Yeah. That is true. I mean, back then, like $80 back then would have been maybe like £50, like 40 maybe. So, certainly closer to half than it is now.
Yeah. Are you ready to dive right into this shit-filled pool, Matt?
Yeah, let's do it.
Now, usually, you want to open up something, especially you paid $80 for with something, a banger, something exciting to get you going. They kind of did that, but before that, it was the opposite of that. It was literally what we're talking about. Bobby Heenan and the Mean Gene. For some reason, it just opened up to them inside a car with a cameraman, arguing like a married fucking couple. Now, granted, in the car, it was nighttime. The next shot was them. Their car broke down in kayfabe on the side of the road. It was daytime. Poof, all of a sudden. Already, here we go, off to the races. This was boring. Yeah. There was no outside of the box thinking. This really felt like, it's 1993. It's the last year we're going to run these tapes. We're out of ideas. It's Bobby Heenan. Let's just turn the light on and say go. And that's what they tried to do. And for as great and as awesome as Bobby Heenan and Mean Gene were in their heyday, Matt, this might be controversial. In 1993, you could tell that they were showing signs of they weren't as... They're getting older. They weren't spring chickens, and their material was aging poorly in an era where everything was shifting.
Yeah, and especially with Bobby Heenan, I think he'd used all of his best stuff like towards the end of the 80s and very early 90s, and now it was just like we're moving into a different era, and arguably greatest manager of all time. One of the greatest colour commentators of all time, but in 93, dare I say that Bobby Heenan didn't really belong in that era of wrestling anymore.
Yeah. If Bobby Heenan would have came along in his prime in the Attitude Era, would we even go down as saying he's in the top? Like, would he... R-rated Bobby Heenan, does that even feel right?
No, it doesn't. I'm glad we had the Bobby Heenan we had, but I felt like... And it's going to be controversial, but like I feel like wrestling moved on, and he stayed firmly in the 80s with his material and the way he did it. Even when he jumped ship to WCW and he was on commentary for Nitros, etc., it felt like listening to an 80s Bobby Heenan. He didn't update his shtick. He didn't. I don't know whether people didn't. Had too much respect for him to tell him that actually it wasn't working anymore, but it got old after, I feel, end of 91.
Yeah, well, he had some good stuff on commentary that year, like Survivor Series and that Hart family match, and that was good
Yeah,
stuff. But it was they were like those rare gems in between stuff anymore. It wasn't constant, greatest hits all the time.
no, it wasn't. And I mean, I couldn't, I can't think of a Bobby Heenan that stuck around. Like, can you imagine him in '95 WWF and '96 and moving on into the Attitude Era with, because he wouldn't have changed.
I don't think he would have taken a stunner either
WCW.
because he had neck. I mean, he got pissed at Brian Pillman when he just took his coat off at commentary. Imagine Steve Austin trying to give him a stunner. I don't want to remember the bad times of Bobby Heenan. On the other end of this, you can copy and paste everything we just said for Gene Okerlund. I mean, my God, this was the AT&T Okerlund here because all he did was phone it in this whole fucking tape.
Yeah. I mean, they were both coming to their end, weren't they, in WWF? Let's be honest, they were.
This was it.
I think they had an eye on the horizon.
They really did. Up next, we're kicking off with actual, in-ring action. Now, you could literally just call this one big episode of primetime wrestling. You know what I mean? One marathon superstars. You really could. But there was a lot of title matches on this, and I feel like, yes, some of the talent displayed on this, gimmick-wise, no disrespect to the guys, but it's pathetic for $80, especially if you're going to charge that. But at least they gave you a lot of title matches, I feel like, which you never really got ever on TV.
No, that's true. And every one of these matches, apart from the last match, did actually occur in 1992. So, I mean, obviously as a 7-year-old watching this, I wouldn't have really known. But now looking back on it, it's like, especially you said like $80 for a bunch of matches from the year past that I'd probably already seen on television.
Yeah. Opening up, they gave us tag team title action. The Nasty Boys going against Money Inc. This was a newly turned babyface Nasty Boys, where Jimmy Hart switched sides, went with Money Inc. They, you know what? Say what you will. It worked at first. I feel like the fans were into the Nasties, the babyfaces, and it kind of made sense. These two big, lovable, dumb knuckleheads. It's easy to see why they got over as babyfaces. They're human cartoon characters. You know what I mean? But if they didn't have that longevity that a Road Warriors had, or something like that, I feel like.
No, they were a novelty act with a distinct shelf life.
Yeah.
You know, I think they lasted longer in the wrestling industry than they had any right to do. I know they went to WCW afterwards. They, got over there and then petered out, Travis, just like everybody else did.
Besides a match I'm not lying when I say this, so if you laugh, hey, that's on you. I'm dead serious. Besides a really good match I saw the Nasties have when they were still in the NWA against like the Southern Boys, this may be the best Nasty Boys match I've ever seen.
I can't disagree, because I can't, for the life of me, remember any memorable Nasty Boys match. Like, you could give me an hour to think back. I wouldn't be able to pull anything out of the hat for you.
Now, this is also going to be an ongoing theme in this show. Every time we're going to surprise you, it's going to be me that surprises you when I think guys had good matches, because I feel like I'm going to be way more positive about this tape than Matt. Every time we do that, it's always going to be a case of who they're working against. Look who the Nasties were working against. I can't imagine why this was their best match.
Yes, even a 92, Ted DiBiase had some magic in the ring, and I don't think Mike Rotunda got half the praise he deserved for being a solid technical wrestler during his career.
Plus the world's sweatiest wrestler, I feel like, of all time.
Oh, can you imagine working in that shirt in a 90-degree building?
Plus suspenders like traps all the heat inside in the air too. There's nowhere really for your neck to breathe, because it's all like your shirt's pinned down.
And then you've got that tie cloying around your throat as well.
I hope he got slipped an extra $50 after every shot he made, just for wearing that. Just for the deodorant expenses alone. Man, no, you're right. In all seriousness, yes, he is an underrated. One of the most underrated performers of all time is Mike Rotunda to this day. Yeah. I feel like but this also, I feel like especially Knobs, because I've always felt like Sags was the better in ring than the Nasty Boys, but Knobs was more charismatic, and I always thought that was their yin and yang, what made their team work. But I feel like this was the most psychology I've ever seen out of Knobs. He was working arms. He was doing these brainbusterish, cleverish, like tag team sneaky moves. Like, I don't know. It was just, I didn't feel like I was watching. I was like, who is this team when I was watching this? And I was, shout out to the Nasty Boys, man. I don't think I've ever walked away happy and glad that I watched the Nasty Boys match until this.
No, but I also have to say, it's like, as good as the Nasty Boys were, I think the entire credit here has to go to Money Inc., who clearly laid this out.
Right.
Like, DiBiase and Rotundo clearly laid this out for them step by step. And they didn't have to, because this was, for all intents and purposes, just a normal TV match. Yeah, they could have gone out there, they could have done 7 minutes of the usual stuff, and then Money Inc. retain by count out or disqualification, etc. They didn't have to go to this length. I think this went like 14 and a half minutes.
Plus, the booking went above and beyond, too. Like, they tried to walk out, and then they restarted the match, right, and said they'd lose the title or some shit. Like, they didn't have to do all that. This is WrestleFest. But they did.
That's it. This is primetime wrestling. You know, they didn't know this would probably end up on a compilation at some point. And they only really did the walkout stuff, and, Money Inc. will lose the titles if they don't return to the ring in the ref count of 10, etc. for, like, big pay-per-view matches.
Well, there's Vince's excuse to why he charged that much money. Well, we gave you all that. I can hear it already. We failed to mention already, for the most part, it's the same commentary team on this tape. It's Lord Alfred Hayes and Sean Mooney. Now, at first, this was complete and utter cringe, but about 3 matches in, Sean Mooney just started getting fed up with Lord Alfred's shit and, like, literally, like, scolding him for just being uninformed, unentertaining. Every time Alfred would try to do something, Mooney would, like, it felt like a shoot. Like, he would correct him and put him in his place, and it became highly entertaining by the end of it. I was looking forward to more of these two by the end of the tape, because when it came to, like, Gorilla and Lord Alfred Hayes, then it was just like watching two guys in a retirement home talk about shit they have no clue what's going on. That was unbearable.
The fact that you just said that you couldn't wait for more Lord Alfred Hayes. Have you had a smack on the head recently?
I think the whole world's losing its mind. I'm
genuinely worried about you.
Everybody's losing their minds in these times.
Because during this, like, Alfred Hayes several times called he called him Stags several times during this match.
Stags.
No one gave him a script. No one cared enough to say to him, look, his name's Jerry Sags, not Jerry Stags.
Did you happen to catch the fucking amazing line where Sean Mooney compliments WWF and putting out another great, compilation tape, and then Lord Alfred Hayes chimes in with, "Oh yes, it's great. I plan on buying a couple for members of my family," and blah blah. I'm like, what?
I've got that written down somewhere. It's like he names the bloke, and the bloke's name is Marty Applesbaum. Marty Applebaum. He goes and he puts together these wonderful and exciting tapes. Really? Well, I'd like a fucking word with Marty, please.
Marty was unemployed shortly after this.
That should have been the caption on the end of the compilation.
But
Marty Applebaum no longer works for World Wrestling Federation.
That Alfred Hayes pitch may have been the most forced fucking thing I've ever heard in my life to try to sell something. It was so bad. So bad. And by the way, if this is what you're getting members of your family, you must not think too fucking highly of your family. What do they do to deserve this?
Yeah.
Money bags? Which,
oh my god.
It hurts.
It makes it even funny. It makes it even funnier now that you told me at the beginning of this that they charge $80. It's like, fuck me. I hope Alfred hasn't got a big family because.
God, Mrs. Hayes was very busy.
God.
Where did that take us to next on WrestleFest, man?
Oh, well, after Money Inc. win. That took us to Crush versus Papa Shango. And honestly, apart from one or two highlights, this is all downhill from here. Like, just prepare for a nosedive.
Can I say another great job at the smoke and mirrors by WWE here, because kids love Crush in this. In this little clip, the kids in this audience were going wild. Even adults were going wild for this man, like he was Jesus Christ coming out from the tomb.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's like I was one of them kids, Travis.
Same.
I loved Crush.
It was the bright
as
colors.
A child. Yeah, and you know, he looked to a child's through a child's eyes. He looked like, you know, the atypical baby face. You know, he had that clean shaved look. He had that flowing hair. He had the body. And of course, you know, as a child, you don't look at him and go, he is an absolutely atrocious wrestler. The look just takes you. And I think one of the defining moments of my childhood watching WWF was when Doink the Clown first attacked Crush. Because it's like you've got this fucking scary bloke dressed as a clown attacking this wholesome babyface who I quite like.
This big, gentle, mulleted man who just wanted to be friendly to kids.
Yeah. I think that, you know, oh, what's happening to us? I think it was, like, the matches with Doink were hideous, but I loved the story. I mean, that's got nothing to do, that's 10 times more interesting than what we got here, but the Crush versus Doink story, I would just drop in, was very well done, especially to a child's eyes.
I still think one of the highlights on this tape for me in any era of this kind of wrestling is, like, just look at the crowd, and, like, especially with guys like Papa Shango during his entrance, they'd show close-ups of little kids being afraid, and it's incredible to see how much people believed back then at the most hokey, bullshit, superstitious gimmick. These kids, we still believed in a way. This guy was really a voodoo master or whatever.
I think that was the magic of wrestling before internet and social media. You know, we didn't know any better unless you were a real smart mark. You know, you never knew who they really were. So Papa Shango was genuinely scary. Is
Charles Wright, the Godfather, Papa Shango, whatever you want to call him, is he not talked about enough as one of those guys about in that era before the internet that were so good at a gimmick? Just like James Harris, I feel like Kamala is underrated at being good at his gimmick and being believable in that character. I don't think those two guys get talked about enough and how good they just were at pulling that off and making people believe. For as bad as some of the matches were, you know, you got to overlook that sometimes.
Yeah, they were hideous sometimes, but yeah, they bought into the character completely. And I think it's like, I mean, I think Kamala only ever had the Kamala character. I don't remember him doing anything else that really made an impact. But, I mean, I think Charles Wright especially, it's like, you go from Papa Shango to Karma to the Godfather. It's like such a change between all three.
Yeah. Very eclectic performer.
Well, not in the ring, but yeah.
Not in the ring, but maybe that's why he wasn't a world champion. Oh yeah, this is wrestling. You got to be good at that too. No, this very boring Superstars match. For as much as people love, as soon as the bell rang, this crowd died a death, and that was really weird ongoing theme throughout this tape. It's like, yay entrances, yay, it's good to see you. But then the bell rings, and I think that's another case of these tapings back in the day, these Superstars, Primetime Wrestling Challenge tapings were like, we talk about WrestleManias going long now. That's how long these tapings were, like 5 to 6 hours back in these days.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Can you imagine? I mean, we complain about shit now. Can you imagine being in that crowd and having to sit through 6 hours of Crush, Papa Shango, Big Boss Man, Terry Taylor?
Fucking Matador 2 or 3 times on this tape alone, and we're here complaining about that. These people probably saw him 7 more times this night.
Makes you want to shoot yourself, does it?
Excuse me. Yeah, I think that's a lot of when people talk about the crowd was dead and stuff, and even though I just did that, I kind of want to put that, that disclaimer on there that these people went through a lot on this day. Give them a break. Jesus Christ. I can only imagine what other shit they have to witness off air and dark matches on top of this.
Whoever puts a dark match on a 6-hour taping wants their fucking hands cut off.
Especially when 60 to 70% of these end in schmozzes. And that was the case here, right? With Crush and Papa?
Oh yeah, the first of many on this
Yep.
this compilation. So yeah, Papa Shango disqualified for shooting. Well, they called it fire, but it was actually fireworks into Crush's eyes from his voodoo stick,
Yeah.
and that was your end. Like 7-8 minutes of such a boring match for that end.
Punch, kick, working neck, and a headlock, and then that was it.
Yeah, a test of strength that
That's right.
killed the match dead.
Why the fuck would you look at the guy, look at Papa Shango, why would you even think it's a good idea to do a test of strength? Come on. Dumbest baby face ever. Real quick about Papa Shango, since we never get to talk about him, you've seen the prototype photos of, like, he was supposed to come back in the Attitude Era, and what he would have looked like. How amazing would that have been? Because he looked awesome in those test shoots.
I mean, it would have been awesome to see him come back, but I mean, if we're talking like on a full-time basis, then probably not the best idea in the world. Though Charles Wright had, upped his in-ring game by then.
I think they would have put him in the Ministry.
Oh God. Oh God, can you imagine that?
At least feud with Taker at some point. I feel like we would have got that.
Didn't we? I mean, we did get that in some form in '92.
No, did we?
It was mostly house shows. There were a few superstar and primetime matches. It's all in the book that you can buy now from completelynovel.com. But we did, obviously, I wrote it 2 years ago. I can't remember the fine details, but he was a stand-in for someone who, I think he was a stand-in for Nails, actually. They were going to go with Taker and Nails at the end of '92.
And then the walkout with Nails and all that shit.
Yeah. And then Papa Shango stood in for the longest time on house shows and a couple of TV matches in between Rumble and WrestleMania when they didn't want to, put Giant Gonzalez out there too much.
I knew if I had an unsure question about something involving Undertaker in his career, you would know.
All that research and all that time and all them years paid off finally.
There you go. Where did our broken down car take us next? On the side of the road again?
Oh, no, not yet. We were taken next to Rick Martel, the model Rick Martel, versus the Big Boss Man.
This was dog shit. This may be one of the lowest grades I'll ever give anything on this show. This was fucking brutal. And I can't believe I'm saying that because Rick Martel was in the match.
Yeah. I mean, I've got 3 notes for this, Travis. One of them says every bit a TV match, in that nothing happens, and then I've got the ending, and then an observation about, the logic of the ending.
On my notes, I wrote F-A, and then it's a big squiggly line because I started to write more than 2 letters. I fell asleep watching this match, and I drifted off and didn't get to finish my notes because it was that boring.
It's a shame because Rick Martel was such a good wrestler as well.
Big Boss Man was a great big man. One of the most agile big men I've ever seen, too. And I feel like on paper, these guys should have had not a banger, but something pretty better than this. Fuck.
Yeah, anything better than this.
Punch kick, rest hold, punch kick, work the crowd, go outside the ring, chicken shit heel stuff, boring rest hold finish. That's it.
And all that for what? A double disqualification.
Again. Yep.
And not even a logical double disqualification. A double disqualification because they both threatened each other with weapons.
His weapon was a cologne bottle, an atomizer. How hilarious was that in the first place? That he wasn't going to spray him, he was just going to hit him with it. And then I guess the best part about this match, got to give it to Boss Man, he hit that atomizer flush when he broke it in half. It was a good shot on camera when they showed it. So shout out to him. There's something good out of it.
Yeah. But this match was so boring that I was looking for the illogical in this, in that Bossman's got a nightstick. Rick Martel could have easily blinded him, and the nightstick would have done nothing to stop it.
I just wonder the logic that went into putting a lot of these matches together, especially knowing this is going out for an overpriced compilation tape. What it was like for the guys, like how much notice did they get they're going to be working these guys? Like when did Randy Savage find out he's going to be working the Red fucking Rooster as the main event? You know what I mean? Like what? Imagine like Savage, who's been in this huge. This is right after. We'll get there in a little bit, but I'm jumping the gun for now. This is right after Savage lost the title to Flair, right? Flair's 2-time champ. You'd think, Savage is ready to, be up there and in that main event angle still. Nope, Terry Taylor. What?
Yeah.
He's still here? I thought we let him go years ago, man.
And I mean, that match we're talking about, which is coming up shortly, it's like that was.
Decent
it wasn't
match.
just. I did look it up actually, Travis. I was so bored. It happened. That was December, I believe, '92. So it was like 7 months after he lost the title, but still.
Right after the Mr. Perfect stuff came back too, or like they were partners at Survivor Series, and Randy Savage is still being booked atop the card, and then Rooster City. Why wouldn't you? Here's my question. Here's what I would have done for my main event for this tape, since it was that time, and they were both on the tape anyway. Your main event should have been Randy Savage and Razor Ramon, and you could have done a schmoz in that. Of all the matches to do a schmoz, do it in that one. Fuck it.
Yeah. I'm glad we got the main event we got though, because we'll get there in a bit. But one of my favourite matches, I think ever, especially in Monday Night Raw history.
Yeah. Before we get there, we got a lot more shit to sift through.
Oh, we have. Talking shit to sift through, we were back to Bobby Heenan and Mean Gene, and I can't tell you for the life of me what they did, because literally my notes consist of the words back to Heenan and Gene. I don't know what this bit was about. I think they were just bickering over how he was mending the car.
I even debate wondering if this was a skit, like if this was just them in real life and they just, oh man, this is good shit, film it and we'll use this for a tape. That's how unentertaining it was.
Let's do some test footage, and then they just broke down.
I mean, this was when like the steroid trial and stuff was about to kick off, or right in the cusp of it too, almost. So financially, times were tough. So they were going for anything to fill these fucking tapes, it feels like.
Well, it certainly came across. You got anything to say about this a little bit, or can we move on?
How dare they ever said anything about WCW's production stuff, like a couple years later where they do the Billionaire Ted skits? How dare they did those, putting out shit like this and what they charged for it?
I know, criminal, wasn't it?
Up next, was this Virgil's finest hour?
This was...
I missed one.
Hang on, where are we? This was Repo Man versus Earthquake.
This was nobody's finest hour. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. This was... I don't even know.
Abysmal, I think is the word you're looking for.
It made no sense. Why was Earthquake selling so much for the Repo Man, for one? Why did this go so fucking long? Yes, if it's going to end like that especially, this should have been a 3-minute match tops with especially a newly turned singles push for Big Quake as a babyface. You should be steamrolling this fucking guy. What was this?
Yeah.
What was this? Was this planned push for Repo Man to get him so strong?
Fuck knows. But was Typhoon injured? Because why could this not have been the natural disasters versus Repo Man and someone?
Even better, like 2 months from now when Monday Night Raw became a thing, why was Typhoon having singles matches on Raw against like Doink? Why wouldn't it be Earthquake if you're going to build him up like this for months? I don't get it.
Yeah, agreed.
I can't believe we're debating a natural disaster. She would have been the biggest single star, but here we are. This is what coronaviruses do to people.
The only thing this match did for me was remind me how much I always thought Earthquake looked like a paedophile with those massive hands and that big dirty beard.
Jesus.
Is that just me? Because all through his late 80s heel run, I look back at him now and think you look like the if I was to have to describe a paedophile to the police, I'd be describing Earthquake.
I feel like I see the unkempt part, and he's really gross, and he has awful hygiene. But I don't feel like anything about his appearance to me makes me feel like he touches kids. I don't know. Could you imagine giving that description of the cops, like describing the design of his singlet that week? Like, no, this is like after the natural disaster split up, and they started like tilting his letters on his tights.
Oh my god! Is this it? Is this what this video was so bad that we're now debating whether Earthquake touched kids or not? That's a new one.
I did that. That's on me because I made that happen.
You made me watch the fucking video.
I didn't think we'd be talking about pedophiles. I mean, maybe a Pat Patterson joke every now and then, but Jesus Christ. I have tears in my eyes, by the way, right now.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's a lawsuit in this somewhere, so I think we should maybe move on.
No, we're good. Earthquake died a long time ago. I think we're safe.
Yeah, but his family didn't. Can you imagine his poor widow shooting into say, "Oh, look, they're going to review one of my husband's matches."
They come after me. I'm going to point at you and be like, "Go back on the tape. He brought it up, not me." This match sucked. I'll just leave it at that. This was awful. The crowd didn't even give a shit. For as many guys that got a way bigger reaction than they ever should on this tape, nobody gave a shit about either of these guys, except for the finish. That was it.
Yeah, typical finish, Earthquake splash, and that was it.
I'm so sorry. I reap what I sow. I will never do. I repo what I sow.
Oh dear.
Now is it Virgil's time to shine?
Yes, it is.
Shawn Michaels versus Virgil Intercontinental title match. Hey, I got to tell you, in all seriousness, man, all jokes aside, besides that match with Ted DiBiase at SummerSlam 91, this is the best Virgil match I've ever seen. He hung right in there. The crowd was into both guys. Shawn got that shitty heel heat with the Screaming Girls effect still. The girls still love Shawn. But for El Matador and Virgil on this tape, and we haven't addressed this yet, there was, and this kind of correlates to your pedophile accusation, Matt. There were so many zoomed in camera shots of young girls going wild for like Virgil, young blonde girls, and Tito. And I'm like, what is going on? And like when Shawn would make his entrance, they'd show like some dude in the crowd. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I refuse to believe a 1992. I mean, not so much Virgil, but I refuse to believe a 1992 Tito Santana made anyone's knickers wag like that. Sorry.
Maybe his wife, Mrs. Santana. In all seriousness, I know it is so hard to even think about reviewing a Virgil match without laughing, but you got to give it to Virgil in this, man.
Yeah, this is surprisingly a solid mid-card championship match. Virgil looked good in everything he did. His comebacks were timed and placed well throughout to stop this being just a 7-minute squash. And I commend him here, actually. It's like he took a beating when he needed to take a beating. He knew when to, and how, more importantly, to make the comeback. And very good all round.
It's really weird to see this time of Shawn Michaels right when he also started becoming a singles. He's not quite there yet. You can see he's still kind of finding when to play to the crowd and the little subtle heel tricks and shit. But I hated Shawn using that backdrop as a finisher. It never made sense. That's something.
Doesn't it feel weird now, like watching the Shawn Michaels match back and him not using the sweet chin music as a finisher?
It kind of feels like it would have, if we were the same age then watching this, we'd be critiquing it like, what is he? This is something a Scott Norton and a Scott Steiner should use as a finish, not a Shawn Michaels. And thank God he learned that by, along the way with the super kick, a move you can do to anybody, no matter what your size.
Yeah, and the move was awkward as well, because it felt like he got him up at an awkward angle. And then at any minute, he could probably break his neck if he dropped him wrong. I
mean, it's just one giant tug on your nuts, the suplex. I mean, that's what it is. It's an awkward... You grab the dude's nuts and you lift him by him. Maybe that's the extra of that. Maybe that's why it's the finish, honestly. Testiplex.
Yeah. Testiplex.
I don't know. I really don't know whose idea that was. Something I'd love to learn, like in a shoot interview or something, like who came up with that for his original finisher. Because man, didn't work for me. I don't think the crowd, as much as they tried to drive home that was his finish, every time he did it in a match, the crowd never knew it was the finish because it was such a lackluster finish. So I feel like every time he did this, it came off, half-assed, and, someone got in his ear, and the super kick, you always knew that was the end, and the crowd would pop huge for it. And that was the night and day difference in the two.
Yeah, I do agree on that.
Somehow we pulled professionalism out of the show. We've done it. When we come back, we're going to take a little break because, quite frankly, I need to recover for sure for like 2 minutes. But when we do, we are going to recap one of the hardest cards I've ever had the pleasure of reviewing with you, my friend, to try to stay professional and keep it on the rails. WrestleFest 93. When we come back, stick around. Here's the Bruiserweight to stretch you if you don't.
I'm the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne, and you're listening to the Union Smack podcast.
It is with tremendous honor that we here from Union Smack induct our picks as the greatest legends in the history of British and European wrestling, right here on the Union Smack Hall of Fame, put together by my co-host, the Maniac, Matt Tennant. Stay tuned in the coming weeks for the first batch of inductees right here on the Union Smack podcast.
Welcome back. We hope you've stuck around for more punishment because God knows we have. We're strapped in the torture chamber, ready for more WrestleFest 93. Matt, up next, I'm going to let you fire away on all cylinders because it's time for you to talk about, you're the connoisseur of Undertaker and his lineage, his history. Another footnote in the career, Matt, or a shitty highway truck stop and you step in somebody's piss when you're going to take a piss kind of deal here for the Taker and the Berserker.
Yeah, definitely the latter. I think 92 was arguably the worst time in his career. Coupled with the beginning of 93, Giant Gonzalez. Because what did you have? You had Berserker, Kamala, Giant Gonzalez. That would eventually transition into Mr. Hughes in 93. So
I feel
definitely like, dark times to the Undertaker.
I feel like 95 wasn't too kind to him either.
Yeah, well, King Mabel.
Bundy. IRS.
Do you know what, this match wasn't great. Obviously, it was the blow-off to the Taker Berserker feud. But looking back on it now, it's like, did Mark Calloway really make an impact not as a character, because obviously the character of The Undertaker was over massively. But did he actually make an impact as a wrestler, like in-ring, proper, just take the character away for a second, an in-ring wrestler till around like 96? Because for me, not really, not until Mankind got onto the scene and got involved.
I might have to disagree a little bit. I can't disagree in the fact that the character always overshadowed the in-ring, but I feel like even his debut at Survivor Series 90, when he first did that amazing flying clothesline, and he was so agile when he did that. I feel like that, even without the Undertaker gimmick at the time, was no one was doing that kind of stuff that size. It would have got heads turned, but with the combination of the gimmick, obviously, is why those heads, when they turned, they stayed and they didn't turn their heads back. So I totally see where you're coming from. I do.
Yeah, he was agile and flying clotheslines, etc. But
the rope walk.
What I'm trying to say is the all-round, like the in-ring and the character, I don't think really came together 100% until around 96. It was like the character overshadowed the in-ring, and the in-ring, honestly, especially around 92, 93, just wasn't that good.
I think what the beauty of the Undertaker gimmick is, and why it evolved so amazingly, is because when it debuted in possibly the hokiest, cartooniest era ever, and to see it slowly over the years just evolve into that serious stuff, I think that's what it was. Now, if it would have been the reverse, let's flip all that. Let's say he debuted in an edgy time, then it became what it is now. It's not as cartoony now, but it's more corporate than ever and filtered and just meh. I think we might not be talking about his legacy as much as if he wouldn't have debuted this way. I think it all worked out perfectly for the Undertaker character. I really do. I wouldn't have changed that a thing.
I mean, maybe a couple of better opponents for him along the
Maybe
way,
at least one title run that didn't shit the bed. Because let's be honest, for every time he won the title, those runs weren't very good. Every one of them.
No, he was more a transitional champion for a while, wasn't he? Than
Didn't need a belt.
like a serious. You don't think?
Maybe when he was Biker Taker, but as the dead man, before they blew their loads with just the Attitude Era killed so much mystique for the Undertaker. You know what I mean? I feel like he didn't need it, but then, you know, he started needing it, like we said. But like the Fiend right now is a case of, I don't think he needs a belt at all. I think as much as people want to compare the Fiend to the Taker, I don't feel like the Fiend needs that belt at all to be special right now and to be booked in main event shows. Because people will still care because he's such a unique character.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
But unfortunately, the cool shit that the Fiend's doing lately is not why we're here. We're here for the Undertaker and Berserker. I will say, one fan in this crowd was invested enough to take the time, knowing going in, to make a custom RIP Berserker sign. Shout out to him. One person cared at least, Matt.
The only one.
Sure, that was not you, right? That was not little Matt in the crowd, right? That was somebody else.
No, that wasn't me.
All right.
God, this was horrible, Travis. This match,
Yeah.
like, absolutely horrible. And we were saying off air, it's like, this didn't feel like a blow off at all. This just felt like another chapter in the rivalry.
Right. Exactly. This didn't even feel like a stop along the way for the Undertaker. This is one of those lost routes that you got to go back and watch weird shit like this to even remember, because I think it's a case of WWE was not too proud of this and they want people to forget about it kind of thing, this feud.
Yeah.
Can't blame him.
I totally agree with that. And it's the Berserker as well, you know?
For a guy...
Who cares?
Years ago, one of my first ever Hibiki Honors videos was on the Berserker, and early in his career, John Nord hit in the AWA in World Class, and he was a tag team with Bruiser Brody. Really good big man. I don't know what the fuck happened when he got the call to the big WWF, and it's just like all wrestling skill went out the window completely. Even mobility goes out the window.
Maybe it was the times or the character, or they said to him, "This is your character," and he couldn't do, what he did in AWA, etc., with the Berserker character. But whatever it was, it hit him hard, because by '92 he was just terrible.
I've tried to look at this card on this tape as fair as possible, and looking at what we have here, bigger picture. Even if I wanted to book a good card with the roster they had in '92, it's tough to not do that with at least one hokey gimmick. Another change I would have made, I feel like it would have been a sacrifice for something better. I would have flipped Crush and the Berserker for Papa Shango and Taker is what I would have done. I feel like those would have been better matches for what they were. The Crush and Berserker thing would have been short at least, and nobody would have gave a shit. And Papa Shango and Taker, I feel like, if they were running those matches on the house shows back then, everything was flipped business-wise. They made their money on the house shows. That means they had faith in them to have pretty decent matches. I feel like it would have been all right. Why not?
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. And plus, Charles Wright and Mark Calloway were good friends anyway.
Yeah.
So more chemistry there. Can I just say, can you imagine if they'd have give John Nord the Undertaker gimmick?
Oof. Imagine if Brian Lee would have got it.
Plan, obviously.
Instead of Taker.
Imagine if who?
Imagine if Brian Lee would have got it. The fake Undertaker.
Oh my God. It's one of them parts that you can't see anywhere else ever playing now. But to think that this gimmick could have been dead in a year and a bit if they'd give it to John Nord.
It's unbelievable that the Berserker character almost lasted 3 years, and his last match in this company, and it's so sad I know this, was against Bret Hart. That was it. Some pretty prominent guys in there, by the way. Taker, fucking Bret. I'm sure he worked Mr. Perfect along the way. I'm sure he worked Razor Ramon. I'm sure. I mean, Jesus Christ, make fun of the gimmick all you want. He got some good paydays in. Shout out to him.
Oh yeah, he milked it for all it was worth.
He did.
I mean, it wasn't worth a lot of money.
Is the Berserker the epitome of that phrase right now at this point? Have we reached the peak of that phrase with this guy?
Yes.
Dare I ask where we were headed next, Matt?
Oh, next we were. Oh dear. Oh dear. Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus IRS. And can I just say, everything I said about Mike Rotunda in the beginning of this review, you'd never know it watching this, because this was absolutely fucking boring.
So one more time, who were the guys in this match, Matt?
Jim Duggan and IRS. Where
did that take us to next, Matt?
Oh, okay. That next was the 6-man tag.
Where did that take us to next, Matt?
Stop it.
I'll just keep saying it. It's every shitty Jim Duggan match that wasn't in fucking Mid-South, because I'm saying it to my dying breath. Once Jim Duggan got popped with the Iron Sheik and Vince was pissed, he always booked him like shit, and Duggan phoned it in to his last day in the WWF. It was awful. It was 90% playing to the fucking crowd, unbearable to watch. I'm sure it was cool live, but Jim Duggan was one of those guys that were always better to watch live than on TV. Just on TV, it was fucking miserable. So boring every time.
Yeah. Do you think, in your opinion, did Duggan ever have a good WWF match?
Man, that's tough, because maybe that one match against Ravishing Rick Rude on like a Saturday Night's Main Event, and that's all credit to Rude, I'm sure. It's been ages since I've seen that match, but that's the one that stands out.
I don't remember that.
He was doing like he was doing the King Duggan gimmick. It's like right when he first won the crown or something around that time. But yeah, that's it. Other than that, dog shit. All of them.
Oh, and that goes with this match too. Double count. All of this, Travis. It went on and on and on. Even Mike Rotunda couldn't save this for a double count out.
This felt like 10 minutes of Mike Rotunda sweating and Jim Duggan standing on his tie yelling, ho. And by the way, Gorilla Monsoon does this shit on commentary. Now I guess Lord Alfred Hayes does it. When has Jim Duggan ever gone, yo? He's always said fucking ho. I've always hated that. Even as a kid, that drove me nuts. I was like, Dad, he doesn't say yo. Ooh, fuck you, Lord Alfred Hayes. Sorry.
Even worse, it's the beginning of his entrance theme.
Which is really Big John Studd's entrance theme, just with the tempo sped up, which I always thought was weird too, if you ever noticed.
I didn't until you pointed that out.
Yeah, it is. It's really weird. It's so weird to hear it as Jim. It's so weird to go back and listen to John Studd's version, because it's so slow and it's like it's underwater or something. I don't know. This match sucks. Speaking of sucks, this one broke my heart. I DM'd you earlier. It's some of the guys in it.
Yeah.
Owen Hart was in this match, for Christ's sake, and it might be the worst match on the whole fucking thing.
I mean, definitely wasn't oh, come on. We've just seen Duggan and IRS and Undertaker and Berserker. This definitely wasn't the worst match on the entire compilation.
We didn't even mention the sword, the sword part in the Undertaker match.
Repo Man versus... Oh, we didn't actually, no.
Well, I was going to say, that at least stood out to me over anything in this 6-man or the Duggan match. So at least that was memorable in the Taker match, is all I was trying to say.
I mean, it was memorable, but when does stabbing someone, or attempted murder, not warrant a disqualification, when a few matches before, you've just disqualified 2 men for threatening each other with their weapons?
Didn't New Jack win titles that way? Stabbing people?
Oh my God.
It got Abdullah the Butcher a Hall of Fame ring, so there you go.
Yeah, that's true.
For a company you never worked for. Man, high energy. By the way, this was kind of funny as shit to see Coco Beware during the entrance do the dance to Owen Hart's theme, essentially. That was funny. Just looking back now, knowing it that comes off his own Hart's theme, it's the first thing you hear. But originally, it was High Energy's theme.
Yes. Can I just say, go back to your Coco Beware point? It's like, I always felt like this was detrimental to Coco Beware. Like, the way he was on your team. I feel like he was the minstrel, if you like Dancesaurus.
Yeah, that hasn't aged the best.
He went from the Birdman, and he didn't make any great splashes as, singles Coco Beware in the 80s and early 90s, but then you put him in a pair of clown trousers, bright green, and you have him dancing, and it's like, I'm not being racist here, but it's like they basically kicked him out the curtain and went, dance for us, funny little black man.
And that's why only here on Union Smack Podcast can you hear takes of where it's actually possible to downgrade from the Coco Beware gimmick to something worse. That's how.
It's not just me, though, is it?
No, I totally see that, because if they'd be doing that nowadays, go out there and dance for me, Mr. Black Man, people would lose their shit, and I don't blame them. It does, now that I think about it, it is, it's a little touchy.
Oh dear.
By the way, Lord Alfred Hayes despises High Energy's attire, because Sean Mooney just even makes a slight joke about, maybe I could see you in something like that, Alfred. And Alfred, shoots it down in 2 seconds, has, venom in his tone. He's pissed about it. You'd never see him called dead in that shit. He didn't like that at all. You don't embarrass Lord Alfred, Mooney. What are you doing?
Well, now Lord Alfred knew how we felt listening to his commentary going on about it. Whose idea was it in 1993 to have Lord Alfred Hayes dub 2.5 hours worth of footage?
Kevin Dunn?
Please.
I don't know.
Dear God. It's like, was it Marty who puts this shit together?
Marty Appleseed, Johnny's cousin. No, you're right. And this was non-stop fucking Hayes. This whole fucking stretch was Alfred in the booth. You're right. Oh my God. He couldn't even get through a line at WrestleMania 1 in little backstage segues, let alone a fucking marathon commentary run. Jesus. Do you even know who you employ in 92? No, you're right. And by the way, get ready to say this. Get ready to say this name for the rest of the show. You ready? High Energy's partner, Matt, was
El Matador, Tito Santana.
Who the little girls love and the old men are jealous of. Man, they should have just let Tito go.
I still refuse to believe.
In 90.
I still refuse to believe. What was he? 40? He must have been 40. Tito Santana.
At least. Easily.
At least. 17-year-old girls aren't losing their shit over a 40-year-old man in fake Matador tights and his hair in the bun. And let's be honest, he looked like, I was going to sound racist again, but he looked like he should be running a corner shop somewhere in England.
Thankfully, we didn't have Jesse Ventura on commentary making all this Tito stereotypes he loved to make, so it didn't take it over the top with that. But I will say, Tito was gone in a year after this. He went to the awful upstart AWF as one of their top guys, and it flopped in a couple months. He should have been released in 90, 91. Dare I say, even after Strikeforce split up. I mean, Jesus Christ, what did they really do with him? Ever?
Nothing, and it would have saved us the El Matador gimmick. Because this gimmick was surely created for the sake of keeping someone around.
It's one of the most stereotypical gimmicks they've ever come up with. It's complete lazy creative for a guy. It's just, of course. That's so easy to come up with. And, how hard did that take to come up with? 5 fucking minutes, I'm sure. The color scheme didn't help his case. I've never seen a bullfighter in pink boots. I don't know about you. Do they do that?
No.
Yeah.
No, never.
I don't get it. This had to be a rib.
Didn't they do the same with, I can't fucking remember their name.
The Colognes.
When they did...
Los Matadores.
When they did, Los Matadores. That was the fucking.
And what's even worse about that was the modern day, and they gave him a little midget in a fucking bull costume to make it even more racist and stereotypical. And they got away with it. I don't get it. People ate it up. They didn't eat it up. People hated it and they were bored. But I mean, people gave it a pass. And like now, Jerry Lawler today in wrestling world is being eviscerated for a ramen noodles line about Akira Tozawa. And yet, like 5 years ago, they were doing gimmicks like Los Matadores, and everybody was fine with it. What? I don't get it. It's what it is. Their opponents. Oh, Jesus Christ, Matt. I'm sorry I did this to us. You want to do it? Because I'm going to laugh. Now? You do it.
Do you see what your ideas do to people now, Travis? So, their opponents were the Nasty Boys and the Repo Man. And the Nasty Boys, after being baby faces on the beginning of this, were heels once again. Explained by Lord Alfred Hayes as, well, they've just decided to give Jimmy Hart a second chance.
At the beginning of the tape, they're baby faces. 40 minutes in, they're heels again with the manager on their side. They're feuding with them at the beginning of the tape. Now imagine you've never seen this thing called wrestling before. This is your first exposure. You're hyped. This guy or this girl you're dating, they're going to sit down. They're big fans. They've been talking about it. You're going to learn from them. You want to learn from them. You sit down. You've got a million fucking questions. You annoy your boyfriend and they dump you. Why? Thanks, WWE, because you fucking confused them. Ruined another happy fucking couple. This just made me pop and laugh so hard that they did this. I literally laughed out loud that they were heels in this. I loved it. And for all the wrong reasons.
Is that the only part of the match you loved? Because I can't pick out anything that I like.
It's not that it was botchy or bad or the guys look like shit. It was just so goddamn bland and unmemorable. Nothing to it. That was my problem with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? At one point I caught High Energy physically holding the referee so he didn't see the double team on El Matador.
I don't even remember that. That's how non-memorable this match was to me. So tip of the hat for even remembering one thing from this match.
That's the only thing. It's my head was in my phone for the majority of this. I think I just happened to look up when that was happening.
We won't lie to you guys, man. We'll be completely honest. If we zone out, if matches suck, we'll tell you. We were on our phone for some time. We tried. I mean, we're only human. We're not cyborgs. Our eyes aren't like glued open like Clockwork Orange. We don't have to watch it. I mean, Christ, you watch this shit. If you think it's so great. No, this was this is worse than a house show match.
In the bollocks as this match was. Yeah, not just the house show match, but High Energy and El Matador win by disqualification. Would it really have hurt the Repo Man to take a pinfall?
Got big plans for him, pal. We got to protect Repo Man.
I dread to think what their plans for him actually were.
Considering the way their ranking systems worked in 1992, for Kamala to be in the conversation for an Intercontinental title match, you tell me, Matt. I've thrown my sheet in the air at this point. I've lost my mind. I've already gone insane. I'm done. It's happened.
Well, I do remember UK Rampage 92. I think...
I love this show, by the way.
I think it was Bret Hart versus Rick Martel for the title, I think. But I do remember big rumours that the Repo Man was going to be inserted into the Intercontinental Championship picture in and around after Davey Boy won the title.
I wish you could see the non-look of surprise on my face, considering what we reviewed already, that they were thinking about that. I'm sure they were. I'm sure they had a whole house show loop planned for that, Bret and Repo, and it fucked their plans up.
I think they probably, I'd have to go back and delve into the archives, but I'm sure I remember reading Bulldog versus Repo Man results on house shows in 92. I'm sure of it.
It's more Bobby and Gene stuff, right? Just more filler, uninspired shit, or did they start sprinkling that out more? I couldn't even remember 2 hours in.
No, not yet. This was Terrific Terry Taylor versus Macho Man Randy Savage.
It sure was. Terrific Terry Taylor. My God, the Red Rooster originally released in like 90. He's back for no goddamn reason. I thought he only came back for a one shot for years in the 93 Rumble. Because of the internet, I now know he was back for a couple months before this, just doing like superstars and shit. Nothing, maybe a Monday Night Raw here or there. I can't believe this fucking match happened, but I didn't hate it. It wasn't amazing. It's nothing I'd put on a best of either guy's compilation. Not that a Terry Taylor one would exist. I didn't hate it, though. Maybe it's just because of what we just watched. I was just like, okay, well, I was interested for one, just at the booking. Just like, oh my God, where's this going to go? And they kind of went a little mini Broadway, and I was surprised as many stories as he heard, Matt, over the years about how meticulous Savage was backstage, how political he could be at times, how he protected. It's amazing he would give Terry Taylor so much in this match. And my God, if this was and I'll be completely honest, I will be serious for once. This was my, we talked about casual fan watching for the first time. I would have thought he might have been a top guy had this been the first time I ever watched wrestling. Because, they booked him kind of strong just in the pacing of the match. Let's be honest.
Yeah, so much offense. And,
yeah.
he looked, dare I say it, Terry Taylor looked $1 million in this match.
Yeah, I mean,
he got in the leg work, the back, the stuff you'd expect of Shawn Michaels to get in when Savage and Michaels had their little, very short-lived feud.
Yeah. It reminded me of that match now I think about it. That match that's on so many DVDs now, that one-off, like Savage and Michaels at some rare show. It reminded me kind of that pacing, just not as, flopping around more like Michaels, that more worker-style Taylor, like you said. But yeah, man, I was pretty impressed here with Taylor. And I've seen Terry Taylor have matches with Ric Flair in Mid-South before people come at me or want to say, I'm aware he can have a good match. But, I thought we were at the stage of, this was post-York Foundation. This is winding it down, Terry Taylor. This was not what I expected. And it was a nice little surprise for once in this tape.
Yeah, obviously, because it was placed in the middle of the tape, that's why it was a nice surprise. But do you know what, Travis? 2.5 hours of this, I think we'll take what little good we can get.
Match ended completely clean, though. It's paint by numbers, Savage, body slam, elbow drop, 1, 2, 3. Crowd ate that shit up, though, for what it's worth. And a very sweaty Terry Taylor was disappointed. And it's such high praise from Gorilla Monsoon, finally, on commentary, and Lord Alfred Hayes for Terry Taylor from this. Like, very impressed here with the athleticism and heart of Terry Taylor. Just, God, coming all over him. Jesus. I'm sorry. I didn't think before I spoke.
Oh, dear. That's an image I didn't made in my head. Lord Alfred Hayes coming all over Terry Taylor. Thank you very much.
We just lost 7 subscribers because of me. God damn it, Travis.
And you worked so hard for it as well.
Where did that take us to next? Let's clean ourselves up here from all the coming. As long as Earthquake's not around, apparently, I guess. Where are we headed to next, Matt?
God, I knew you weren't going to drop that. We were headed next back to Bobby Heenan and Mean Gene. And this is the point of the show, Travis. This is the punchline of the entire story, where they simply pull a hamster out of the car engine. Thank you very much. I'm done.
At first, they called it a rat, and then as soon as they did, because obviously it's not a fucking rat, but as soon as they did that, I was waiting on all these inside innuendos about rats and, the horrors is what I'm referring to, people, backstage at the time. But no, I guess the joke was that, it was like the car was being run on hamster power and blah, blah, blah. I didn't get it. A kid wouldn't have thought this was funny. An animal wouldn't think this is... nothing that has a soul or a life force would have got the punchline, because I don't even think the writer of the punchline got the punchline. This was filler. What the fuck? $80.
I think... $80 for a hamster in an engine. Oh...
The hamster costs less for them to buy for this skit than this fucking tape. Yeah, it was this. This may be the most piss poor use of Bobby Heenan I've ever seen, and I've seen him in WCW in 1995, Matt. I can't believe I just said that. And this was in the company that handled Bobby Heenan better than any other company that ever had him, and that's what blows my mind about this. Unbelievable. And this tape, since we're nearing the end of it, I'm already going to grade this an F. I'm sure Matt is too. Shocker. There's a grade for the show. This tape, it just shows me that Vince McMahon never sat down when they came up with this shit and edited it for selling it to people, for customers. He never reviewed it before it went out the window, and I guarantee he never has and he never will. There's no way Vince McMahon would have let this shit go out his window at the time, even then. Quality fucking control.
No, I bet he still doesn't know it exists. Like,
no. I bet Vince McMahon needs help figuring out the menu and the interface for the network itself, let alone knowing this exists on the network. Let's be real. How do you work this thing again, pal? I'm sorry, Matt. What'd you say?
I said, like, someone with dementia in a home, just some young nurse sitting with him with a remote control, just guiding him step by step through the menu.
He's already fired 3 of them, and all they were doing was just explaining the interface, and like the internet happened to lag, and it wasn't their fault, but he fired them anyway. Yeah, I could totally see that scenario. There is good news. We are almost done, Matt.
We are. 2 matches.
We can do this.
Yeah, is it? No, 3 matches.
Oh, no.
Left.
I thought we could do this. We can still do this. Let's do it.
We can still do this. Next up was Bret Hart versus Kamala for the Intercontinental Championship.
I can most definitely do this. Yep.
The only thing I've written down here was why.
I'm glad this match happened. I'm glad I watched this match. I cannot believe I'm saying this because it had Kamala in it. And Kamala obviously made his entrance first. And as soon as Kamala came out, I already started being on my phone again and all that. Then I heard Bret's music. And this is IC title, Bret Hart, right before he dropped it to Davey. And I was like, whoa, I can't believe they booked this match also, just like the Terry Taylor one. I was waiting on this to shit the bed 30 seconds in. I was fully prepared to watch Bret Hart's worst match ever, and I didn't. And I was surprised, and I'm going to say I just watched Kamala's best match ever, and he hung in there for his style. I'm not saying he went out there like fucking Chris Benoit or Dean Malenko. I'm not saying he put on a clinic, but for his style, his gimmick, and his resume, quite frankly, I was blown away by what I saw Kamala do in this, and just a surprised smile on my face coming out of this. I did not hate this match at all. I'm sorry. I'm not going to lie. I enjoyed it. It was a rare little hidden gem. And I liked only Bret Hart would, and I can't believe no other guy's really done this. To step on Kamala's feet, only Bret Hart would come up with something like that. As like the David and Goliath underneath babyface. How could he outwit him in a test of strength? I love that spot. That was great.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. You can't deny that spot at least. It was good stuff. This is 92, man.
Is that the end of your breakdown now, or is there a bit more to go?
No, I feel like Harvey Whippleman was always a shitty manager. I never got why he was employed. Horrible on the mic. And that's it. That's all I got.
For me, this was pig shit boring, and another shitty finish as well. A DQ finish.
Yeah, there's that. But I gave it a pass in this one because this was on the road to Bret and Davey and Kamala and Taker too. Yes, it was a terrible match. And looking back, it's one of his worst feuds. But at the time, it was supposed to be a big deal. And WWF was trying to make Kamala serious for that Taker feud. So I can see why they did a schmoz in this more than probably any other match on this card. Is that fair at least?
That is fair, at least. I would say if they wanted to make Kamala more serious to The Undertaker, maybe don't have him
against Bret
and his 2 managers just fended off by, someone half of his size at the end. Maybe have him destroy Bret Hart and, show that in his feud with The Undertaker.
I hated that part of it after the post-match where they held down Bret by each arm, and Bret was somehow all of a sudden as strong as Hulk Hogan and able to bring out 2 grown men on each arm and get out of the way just in time. I felt like it should have been a Taker run-in for the sake of this being a tape. Why not? Taker's, the lights go out. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have made sense and got a big pop.
Exactly.
But,
what do we know?
No one thinks of that.
We've been watching this shit for 30 plus fucking years, and now we have 2 matches, I believe. Where are we headed next?
Yeah. We are headed to a very short and pleasing Razor Ramon versus El Matador match.
when I saw Razor come out, I was like, all right, hell yeah, Razor Ramon. When they first brought him in as a heel, Scott Hall could always work. Out of both the outsiders, I don't think there's any question who the better worker was. I was interested. Because I was thinking, who's left on the roster at this point? It got me. I'm like, oh man, could this be Mr. Perfect? I was hyped. And then I heard those Mexican horns again. What did you think of the match?
It's become like a rib now, hasn't it?
It is.
It's like a running joke. When there's no one else, there's always Tito Santana. Sorry. Yes. No. I thought it was fine. It was short enough not to matter. It was short enough to keep your attention. And Ramon wins with the razor's edge.
Do you know what's so crazy about this era of wrestling is that every match we've talked about tonight on this show would have been a main event that week on that week's Superstars show, because every other match is a squash job match. And these shit matches were like the high-profile shit back then. And that's unbelievable to me now looking at this, what we sat through because we didn't know any better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, as much as we've shit all over this compilation, and rightly so, I'm sure 7-year-old me watched this tape and thought it was probably the greatest thing I'd ever seen at that point.
You probably wore it out and got in trouble for wearing it out because it was $80. Again, $80. I'll stop with the $80, I promise. Yeah, I thought the same exact thing. This was exactly what it needed to be for a brand new guy like Ramon, who was highly talented, like we said, and this monster heel you want to push. Yeah. And I mean, shit, if anything, yes, he's been on the tape a couple times now, but if there's a perfect guy to steamroll over at the time, none better than Tito Santana, so right guy for that fucking spot, in my opinion.
Great, yeah. And got to say, along with Ted DiBiase, I think Scott Hall, for me, was probably the best wrestler never to be WWF champion.
Can't argue that at all. Thankfully, the main event is something that we've seen before, we had never talked about before, which I'm excited to talk about, but it's been on tons of compilations, Best of Raw, blah, blah, blah. It's a match that took place for Monday Night Raw. Ric Flair's last match in the early 90s in the WWF, the retirement match against Mr. Perfect. For its time, one of the best matches in the first 5 years of the history of Monday Night Raw, I would say.
I would say even today, probably one of the best top 5 matches in Raw's history.
Yeah.
Even today. And what's Raw, 27 years old now?
Yeah. You know what? Thank God we get to go out this episode with at least some sort of a smile on my face, because I always preferred my Mr. Perfect as a heel, and I'm sure you did too, but I feel like as a babyface, he never shone brighter with... It's always to cheer an asshole when there's a bigger asshole around, and Ric Flair was a bigger prick heel-wise, I feel like, than Mr. Perfect. So that's why it was easier to cheer Perfect in this, and it worked perfectly for me. No pun intended.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, what Ric Flair did for Kurt Hennig in this match was unbelievable. Really, you could have taken this Mr. Perfect and pushed him to a world title opportunity somewhere down the line, because Ric Flair left Mr. Perfect looking like a main event player.
I feel
he
like
did everything in his power to get him to where WWF should have got him 3 years ago.
I feel like Flair, you know how when he went back to WCW, he was part of the booking team. I feel like if Flair, this would have been it wrestling-wise, but he stuck around in WWF as a booker, he would have pushed to, like, this was me passing him the torch. I want him to be in the title spot kind of thing. And I'm completely 100% with you. As much as you love the matches with Doink and Mr. Perfect on Monday Night Raw, I don't know why they didn't put him in the WWF title picture ever after this. Maybe his health? Maybe?
I mean, yeah, he was winding down.
It's a liability.
His back was starting to hurt, and I know his knees weren't too great. But then again, like,
give it to him for a month.
His health,
just as like a thank you for your service type deal, at least. Get him that payday. For one, he came back from a career-ending back injury. That should be enough right there to give him a world title payday out of just appreciation in my book. Fuck.
And then look what he went on to do in WCW. It wasn't anything, out of this world or great or even particularly memorable, but he still managed to carry on wrestling well into 2003. So there's no reason you couldn't have give him, a month or 2 months on top. Just I'm not saying give him the title. Obviously, they didn't want to interrupt the Yokozuna Hulk Hogan thing going on. But at the same time, give him something better than Lex Luger. Give him something better than... What else did he have in 93? Shawn Michaels' Intercontinental title feud, which wasn't memorable at all.
Or at least in that feud, have him fucking win it. You know? If you're going to do the Shawn thing, they should have let Perfect win. Get the first three-peat.
Yeah. I mean, I can't disagree with that. But then, do you know what? In a perfect world, right, Bret Hart would have retained at WrestleMania 9. Mr. Perfect would have beat Shawn Michaels for the Intercontinental title.
Yeah.
And then SummerSlam 93 would have been champion versus champion. Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect with just the WWF Championship on the line. And let them go out there and let Kurt Hennig have his... Because he was gone, wasn't he, by Survivor Series? He was meant to be part of Team Razor Ramon.
Yep. And it was Macho as a replacement.
Yeah, exactly. So this would have been, SummerSlam 93 would have been his final big stage to perform on in WWF. 25-minute classic. Try and recapture what they did at SummerSlam 2 years previous. And that's how I'd have liked Mr. Perfect to have gone out.
But this match, for Flair to go out in the WWF, I think it was a perfect send-off for Flair's character.
Yes.
I think on his end, this made sense. He passed the torch the right way. At least he thought he was passing the torch. I have no complaints about this match at all, and it feels like it's like, Jesus Christ, we've been at this horrible strip club. You and I decided to take a break. We've been on the road all night. We pull over this strip club, and it's just these disgusting beasts, and it's just awful. And they have beards, but all of a sudden you see, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, you see a 5, but because she's around like this, she's like a 10. It's like that, but she's better than a 5. It's good. It's good stuff. It just feels like that. What?
I mean, I would always give this match at least 4 stars.
What ratio per match do you think Ric Flair has bled and not bled? Do you think at this point, at the end of the day, now that he's done, do you think I'm dead serious. Do you think he's bled in more matches than he hasn't?
Got to have done.
Yeah.
All those matches in the 80s with Rhodes and Harley Race and everybody else, like the cage match with Ronnie Garvin, his wars with Steamboat over he's got to have, I would say, ratio-wise, it's got to be 80-20.
How crazy is that? And it's crazy because he's considered, like, when you think of just like a guy's style, he's like a mat wrestler, like an old school purist technician type, right? And you would never think his ratio would be that with blood, but it's just how it was back then. That's what sold tickets. Blood literally sold tickets back then, blood feuds, before hardcore bullshit. Yeah,
and you know what? For such a expert heel as Ric Flair was, he always knew how to get a babyface over at the same time.
There's always a reason a guy that looked like a Harley Race back in those days, the 70s, drew like a Hogan did in the 80s, because he didn't have to look like that, just because of the feuds, the quality of the matches, and blah, blah, blah. And this match on this episode of Raw felt like one of those old territory blood feud matches, and I think that's why it ages so well for me. That's really all I got to say about it. It's really good. Go out of your way to catch this.
Definitely. And even though this isn't the full match on this compilation, there are several cuts made, for time. Do go, out your way to look at the full match, because, I'd give it 4 to 5 stars any day of the week. And I think it still ranks in my top 10 matches of all time.
That's just our luck, too. That just sums up this whole motherfucking tape. Out of all the matches they could have edited on this for time, they chose this one. And let's sum it up. That's about it.
That's all we can say. It's like, just imagine that they could have took away Repo Man and Earthquake, Crush and Papa Shango, and put the rest of this match in. But no, they force us through 2.5 hours of this. and cut the best match on the card by half at least.
And not only did they force us, I forced you. And no, we're not. I joked earlier, we're not really going to grade this. This was a rib on Matt. This was a total 100% rib on Matt this episode. Obviously, there's some cards in wrestling, Matt. You can look at the matches before you even watch it and know what you're going to grade it. And I'll leave it at that.
I can't disagree. But that match wasn't the end of the tape, of course. We had to put a cap on Bobby Heenan and Gene Okerlund.
One more time, what did we get with Bob? Because, again, I don't remember a memorable one line during this whole tape that they said that stands out at all. The only thing I remember is chocolate syrup on Bobby Heenan. They're trying to think that we think's motor oil, that he's licking and all this shit.
So it ended with them finally giving up, fixing the car, hitching the lift, and as Gene Okerlund gets in the car that pulls over Bobby Heenan tells him to hold it while he gets all the luggage, it drives off without Bobby Heenan.
You know, for such baby faces, those announcers were fucking such heels to Bobby Heenan. Gorilla Monsoon on his last night, throwing his belongings in the road. Like, it was like toilet paper and soap. He didn't have a lot to begin with. And Gorilla didn't give a shit. He just kicked all over the street and said, fuck you, get out. And anything could have happened to that poor man, Gene. Christ. Who's the real heel?
So the Kamala match wasn't the end of your breakdown then. There was still a bit more to come, was there?
I apologize. Unless
Can we go home now?
Yeah, unless you got anything else. One more time before we out of here. Where can everyone catch you?
You can catch me on. I nearly forgot my own Twitter name then. At the Perfect Tenant. You can log on to unionsmack.bigcartel.com, grab yourself a t-shirt, all the official merchandise, more to come for the summer, and completelynovel.com, where you can purchase my Undertaker book, A Trip Down Death Valley. Well worth a read in these quarantine times. You can't go outside, you can't do anything else. So sit and enlighten yourself. And that's all I've got, Travis. I'm done for the night.
Thank you, my friend, for bearing with me and my bullshit this week. And guys, not to fully kill the silly, good humor mood on this episode this week and the jokiness. In all seriousness, like all pro wrestling right now, everything's up in the air. We don't know what the future holds for us reviewing NXT UK. We do know, as soon as we know, we will be right back reviewing it weekly. Until then, expect more stuff like this. I mean, I really don't. It's what we kind of started out doing. We will hang in there for you guys because we know times are tough. We're going to try to keep you guys entertained because it's an escape for us too, doing this. But until we know the future of NXT, we'll get back on a normal protocol, Matt.
We will, and obviously you've got Tenant Talks coming this week as well. I'm almost done with that. You might even have already seen it by the time you hear this, but, you know, Issue 8 is on the way, and I look more at NXT UK cancelling the Bournemouth tapings, not being, you know, able to tape anything now until the end of July, which is their next date in Glasgow, if that even goes ahead. And, you know, the Becky Lynch news, everything you need at Issue.
We got you covered for sure. We will still be here. Who knows after this where we'll be headed next? Until then, you can be headed also to Twitter to follow me at the HibickyTMD. Everything Matt said, unionsmack.bigcartel.com. Get a shirt, get a book, all the goodness. Gathering my wits about me. I'm starting to feel normal again. Thank God we have escaped WrestleFest. Until next time, Union Smack. Cheerio, mates.